Welcome back to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I am your host, Matt Tardio, and I think it's going to be a fairly good day. We've got a lot of stuff that's coming up for you guys in this morning's show, and I hope you guys are ready for it. Over inside of Iran, it looks like they are ramping up their propaganda narrative and are absolutely pushing to make sure that the United States believes for some reason that they're a peaceful nation. Their propaganda game is through the roof. But Trump actually, it looks like he might have switched out aircraft carriers, is what I am hearing today. And for very good reason. The one aircraft carrier that he originally wanted to go over there to join in on the party looks like it might have some maintenance issues, and they're rushing to get a second one over there. We're going to talk about which aircraft carrier that is, why they ended up switching it out, and a heck of a lot more going into it. Now, this couldn't have come at a worse time for the United States Navy, because yesterday this video actually ended up getting released where two U.S. Navy ships that were operating over in the Caribbean actually ended up colliding with each other. Now, there was no deaths or injuries I saw as a result of this. I take that back. I did hear that there was potentially two injuries that occurred, but Lord only knows with the Navy that could be they fell over and bumped their hip or something, right? So who knows? No telling. But yeah, that ended up happening, and those ships actually ended up making port. And as they made port for the repairs, you guys can see how bad that damage is from that collision that they ended up having. So all that came out, which is just freaking unreal, man, that we're actually that, I don't want to say inept at this point. I have no idea how something like this happens. I would think that if you're actually steering a vessel like that, they do this all of the frickin' time. I mean, it's just insane to me that would go down. Knack Dad's in the house, gifting out 99 cents. Thank you very much, sir. As we're waiting on everybody to roll in here before we get into the main, portion of the show and we start talking about Iran and what's going on over there, I also want to bring up that there is a huge issue that is emerging over inside of New York after Mamdani took over. Yeah, it's a bit of a problem. So Criminal Watch ended up coming out with this statement. Basically, what they ended up doing, Mamdani ends up ordering, is that they can't displace people on the street that are living in tents and living in little camps over there. And because of that, one of the things that's actually happening, I cannot make this up, because they cannot get rid of those tent encampments, people have taken advantage of that and are setting up weed shops, drug shops, tents along the streets. Not a joke. That's actually happening, and the cops are doing nothing about it.
Hey, yo, niggas in the Bronx selling weed in the tent, bro. That's crazy, bro. Niggas eyes been outside in the tent, bro. Look at this shit. See that? They come in the Bronx, man.
Yeah, I told them I'm like the only free.
That image right there at the end reminds me of the freaking point sitters out at like the Star Course, like for land navigation. Like they just sit up there and they're like, scorecard. And like sometimes they got smoke and crap like that pouring out of it, but it's literally that freaking ridiculous sometimes, like the way people end up camping out. Other times they end up having like nice freaking fires set up for you, like a bunch of food, just trying to get you to quit, things like that. But that's what that reminds me of. Not that they're giving out weed or anything. I mean, come on, let's be honest there. All right. Let's see here. Who do we got in the house? Knack Dad coming in, gifting out 99 cents. Thank you very much, sir. And Rafi says, good morning, Matt. Good to see you on Holton's show. Yeah, no, it was a good show with Chuck Holton yesterday. It's very humbling to be doing that with Chuck Holton, to be able to go on and actually have that man ask for my opinion. I can't even tell you like how humbling of an experience that is. And is very happy to learn, like, also, the other thing that I like about Chuck, he's a good God-fearing man, good-hearted Christian. And we connected on that level. And it was really kind of cool, something that you guys don't know. Chuck actually, I will give him props here. I got things going on in my life, and Chuck actually was just like, hey, I'm going to pray for you real quick. And to go from seeing this man, like coming up through the years and everything else, to being interviewed by him, and then also to have him praying for me, I cannot tell you what a wild experience that was for me. Like, it is just unreal. I love it. C88 coming in, gifting out a Speak the Truth membership. Thank you, sir. Colby McCurdy says, didn't get the Leo job. My math brain was not ready this morning. Going to keep trying, though. Add this to the legal fund. Thank you, sir. Yeah, and there's, look, most people, when they apply for law enforcement, they take several attempts in order to start passing some of those tests. So Colby, look online and see if you can't find, like pre-Leo tests and things like that. They'll cost you like $5, but they're very good practice. I actually used those when I went into law enforcement, and I didn't have an issue when I went in. All right. Turns out the Department of War is rushing to get more of these bad boys. I believe it's the GBU 57s, the MOPS, the massive ordnance penetrator. These are the bombs that we had it was rumored that we had about 20 of them in our arsenal. And these are what we dropped on Isfahan. These are what we dropped on Natanz. These are what we dropped on those different nuclear sites over inside of Iran back during the 12-day war. So that's insane. I would have thought that we would have immediately tried to replenish them. But if we are trying to get more of these suckers produced, number one, the estimate of 20 within our arsenal, that's not something I'm privy to. That's just kind of what I heard. I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, we dropped 12 of them, which is what, 60% of the arsenal, right? These bombs that were designed specifically to take out, and this is what we learned afterwards, right? These bombs were designed since 2007 specifically to hit the targets over inside of Iran, to actually start breaking through the mountainside and start just crushing them. And the United States government did exactly that, and they dropped and they had good effects. There was a rumor last week that one of these got stuck in the ground and didn't detonate, and that Iran had dug it out and they had it in their control. And I can't express to you how ridiculous of a statement that is, that Iran would have one of these in their control, because, well, quite frankly, I mean, this is just a massive dart with a buttload of explosives inside of it. And it's just a massive chunk of steel, right? Like, it's probably made out of depleted uranium for all I freaking know. But anyways, I mean, it would just be lodged in that freaking mountainside, like buried in rocks, and trying to dig that out of there would likely set it off, right? So it's stupid to me that anybody could actually believe that for the life of me. But either way, that's what it looks like it's happening. Additional flights have been making their way out of Texas. We've got a buttload of them that have started over there. It got quiet for a little while, and we weren't sending them over there. And this is, by the way, this list starts on January 23rd and then continues forward. And you guys can see here, as we're moving closer, the number of flights that are getting out. All of this data got put together by a guy that goes by Intel Frog. He's got all the verified data and everything that ends up going into it. So what's significant about that is we had our talks with Iran last week. And as you guys can see here, we had a significant drop off and whatnot that's going over it. So today's the 13th. So if we were to take a look at our map, and that's kind of why I like, or not, I'm sorry, not our map, dude. Why do I always say our map? All right. So the actual, what do you call it? The actual negotiations were scheduled to take place on the 6th. And so here you have the day after, and you see, or the 6th itself, and you see the massive freaking influx of flights that were going over there. And then they tapered off, and they continue to taper off because we were talking about it. Then we have Bibi that ends up showing up to the United States of America. Rumored when Benjamin Netanyahu ended up coming to the United States that he provided intelligence to Donald Trump that the Iranians were still murdering their people, even after they told us that they weren't doing it. Trump even went out and he talked about it. It was like a huge talking point for him. We didn't murder, or we didn't have to bomb Iran because they came around to it. And it's just simply not true. Right. And I don't think it was even something that Bibi had to provide intelligence to Trump on. I think it's something that was very well known. And I think it was very obvious that they continue to murder. But the big thing is that came out, and this was spoke about over at, I want to say it was the EU Parliament, or it was the UN. I'm forgetting which one, that they actually came out with the intelligence that got intercepted by Iran. And had stated that not only did they continue to murder people, but the hangings that were supposed to take place, that Trump says he thwarted, that those hangings that were supposed to take place, instead of hanging them, that they did one of two things. They either took those prisoners, drug them out back and shot them, or they strangled them. I'll say that again. They either took them out back and shot them, or they strangled them. Where did that information come from? That was intercepted IRGC documents and intelligence that had came out after the fact. So far, we have the United States that is, looking at ordering more massive ordnance penetrators, the GBU-57s, 30,000-pound bunker busters that we need to strike those facilities. We have flights that are beginning to increase again, going back over into the Middle East. And when you see the actual number of these flights that we have already sent over there, and particularly with Texas is very important. And I've been saying this before, that the flights out of Texas are strictly, like, more than likely, I won't want to say strictly, but more than likely carrying those THAAD defense systems, all right, our aerial defense, our air defense, artillery assets, things of that nature, being pushed out over in the Middle East to defend our assets. It's just, I don't even know how to scream how important it is. So here it is. The Gerald R. Ford is going to be on its way over into the Middle East. It is coming out this morning that the Ford was actually received orders to deploy. Now, here's the issue with the Ford is it's already, been deployed for a good chunk of its frickin' time, right? So now this means that the Ford would not return to its home port until likely like May or June timeframe, because it was coming up on the end of its deployment. And the reason that the Ford actually ended up getting deployed over to the Middle East is because the other aircraft carrier that was scheduled to head over there, which I believe the one that we received word of that was supposed to be going over there, it was the George Bush. It hadn't yet completed its like deployment training. Even the Navy has this crap for their aircraft carriers. They're called Computex or Comtext. I have no idea how to properly pronounce it, but it's Composite Training Unit Exercise. It's the exact type of stuff that United States Army or the Marine Corps ends up doing like pre-deployment. Before the like during the war, we would go over to NTC and we'd get certified. But at the same time, on like a very base level, it wasn't just certifications from NTC that we were good to go. You have like certain tasks that you have to complete up and throughout the way that you end up getting certified on before you end up going into a combat zone. And that could be, it starts with like basic soldier skills, making sure everybody knows how to shoot straight, making sure people can throw frickin' hand grenades, making sure machine gunners are equipped. If it's a tank crew, making sure they're qualified on their frickin' tank, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then they move it up into different larger scale operations, starting with like, squad, platoon, company, et cetera. It's going to be the same thing for the aircraft carrier. Now I haven't done a complete analysis on this yet. I just didn't have the time to go over it this morning. So I grabbed somebody's work and I'm going to go ahead and I don't want to say I take his word for it, but the math certainly maths out for how long it's going to take them to get over there. So because they're traveling from the Caribbean and heading over into the Middle East, it looks like they're not going to be over there until probably, and I say probably, it looks like they're probably not going to be over there until like February 20th timeframe. All right. So you're looking at a good 7 to 10 days before they end up getting over there. All right. So it's going to take time for this thing to get over there. Now, that also coincides with us seeing increased flights going back out to the Middle East. So if we're switching out the Bush because it hadn't completed its deployment training yet, and we're sending over an aircraft carrier, the largest one in our freaking fleet, all right, to replace it when it's at the end of our deployment, that means Trump wants this done and he wants it done today. They probably gave an assessment on how long it's going to take for them to complete all of that training, get the aircraft carrier up and ready to go for that particular mission, and it wasn't good enough. And so now they're taking the Ford out of the freaking Caribbean and they're moving it all the way over. And you guys can see the distance that they got to go. It's over 8,000 nautical miles. Now, this distance that they have to travel in order to get over there is going to depend on their speed. If they're traveling at 30 knots, they can get over there in about 8 days. If they're traveling at 10 knots, if they're traveling at 25 knots, they can get over there in about 10 days. And you got to remember that they're also going to have to go through the Strait of Gibraltar. They're going to have to go through, what the heck is that thing, man? The Suez, or not the Suez Canal. I forget what the hell the name of that thing is, man. The one that Egypt controls. I don't know why I'm brain farting this so hard. They got to go through all that crap in order to get over there. So it's a long trip. So what that means is that this trip that they're taking to get over there is going to add additional deployment time. All right. That means that we have more time to get more assets into the region to protect U.S. forces. Right now, Iran is sitting back and I played so many clips last night. I can play them again, but Iran does not trust the United States. It came straight from the foreign minister's mouth that Iran has zero trust. The United States is not going to attack them, even in the middle of negotiations, because we ended up doing it last time. So, strap in, ladies and gentlemen, because Iran can attack the United States any day now. Just because it's taking the United States this long to get their act together and get our assets over there doesn't mean that Iran's not going to strike prematurely. It also doesn't mean that the United States isn't going to wait till they get past like certain choke points. The Ford gets past certain choke points, launch the attack, and then have the Ford freaking come in as well. It all depends on what the war game looks like. Gavsky says, kick that legal thing in the butt, Maddie. Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate that. That's a generous donation. Thank you. Gavsky Skates coming in, giving out 5 Speak the Truth memberships as well. Holy crap, man. And a $10 donation. He says, I got the president of our military leaders need to stall Iran long enough to get our assets in place. I am very hesitant to put our men and women in harm's way, but negotiating with terrorists. And that's exactly the point, man. And I'm with you on that, right? We're expecting to have the United States, all right, negotiating with people that quite frankly are unstable. And when I mean unstable, I mean absolutely unstable. Let me get this up on your screen right here. This effigy ended up getting burned over in Esfahan, and it's the second one that ended up getting burned. All right. They had an exact replica of this over inside of Tehran where their main focus was. But I liked this picture, and I grabbed this picture for an exact reason. Because on this sucker, they have the Israeli flag, but right in the middle, they have Donald Trump's face. They have the American flag. Obviously, they have, pointing towards the Star of David, but also pointing towards that satanic symbol over there in the middle, and all that other freaking crap. It's just disgusting what they're doing. And the reason that they have that going on, and the reason why I put the arrow pointing over there going towards Israel, is because right up here on his chest, it might be easy or it might be hard for you guys to see. It says ball. All right. And that, believe it or not, is like an old, what do you call those things that people back in the day used to freaking worship? Not just false gods, false idols. There we go, from the Bible. So that's where ball comes from. And it was the Canaanites back then. And just to give you guys a quick biblical, play, it was the Canaanites that were worshiping Baal. You go through the Old Testament, you actually look at it, and that was actually detested, and they was stood against not to be doing that. But because there is a little lineage trackage from modern day, Jews living over in Israel that goes all the way back to the Canaanites. That's why they throw that up there, because they're saying your people are evil. This is the root of your people. That's where that comes from. And they liken it over to, like a satanic cult, basically. Now, believe it or not, the idol of Baal is actually what has kind of developed over time into the modern day, devil image that everybody kind of sees this day. If I was to take this full image and put it up on the screen for you guys, you'd see like the horns and all that other crap. But the important part is actually the symbology that's on here and understanding the theology behind it. So that is the important part, as we look at that and as we get into it. So, it's a bit of a problem, when we talk about those people. Now, here's another sign, by the way, that we're moving forward. Prince Razapali, had ended up going to the Munich Security Conference. He's going to be meeting up with U.S. senators, international leaders, etc. Why do I think this is significant? Why do I think this is significant that we're pushing him forward? This is the man that everybody's shouting for the return of the Shah and everything going back over into Iran. And I told you guys that it looked like he was spitting literally almost word for word for word, U.S.'s foreign policy and Israel's foreign policy when it comes to Iran in the video statement that he released last week. And now we're seeing him actually going over there to the Munich Security Conference, where he's scheduled to meet up with important leaders from around the world. That is very important, especially when you end up taking the fact that the EU declared the IRGC as a foreign terror organization. So what does it look like? Well, it looks like the U.S. is going to strike Iran. It looks like we have our shadow government set up and ready to go. All right. And whenever we're talking about a regime change, making sure we have the shadow government that's ready to get infilled in to replace the other one, that is the very important portion of that. And I want you guys to know that. And so it's very important to I guess, not just document, but to actually understand that as we continue to move forward. So we've got our strike carrier groups that are moving to the region. We've got all of that stuff that's actually happening and getting ready to go. And it most certainly appears as if we're going to get there. Now, everybody, I've talked about this over the last couple of days. Not mainstream media, but Iran, what do you call that sucker? RT, influencers, and I also saw one from BBC that I played last night, have all been trying to paint Iran. It's like they came together in this media campaign trying to paint Iran as if it's completely and totally safe, and that it's not a radical regime. I ended up compiling this morning. I'm rather proud of it. I want you guys to take a look at it.
What's amazing, guys, is I have walked this entire rally in the middle of Tehran without a hijab on.
A few moments later.
I am at the Aerospace Explore Center in Tehran.
So what this woman failed to mention at this aerospace center over inside of Tehran is that that's actually operated by the IRGC. So if she'd have walked in there without her freaking hijab on, they would have probably locked her butt in the jail. Why she's getting away with it on the streets and doing it? Because she actually was invited by the Iranian authorities to actually show up in Tehran. All right. So all of this crap ended up like getting thrown together and you have them in there. And it's just shocking to me, I guess, that there's so many of those reports that are coming out. And if you don't believe it was the actual IRGC that put it together and they're not trying to pump out additional propaganda, well, ladies and gentlemen,
we are here at the IRGC Aerospace Museum, where you can see right behind me that the missiles of Iranian forces, which is fully indigenous, are on display. We have some journalists here that are basically covering Iran's capability in its missile program, which has started from 1980s, from during the 8 years of imposed war in Iran by the Saddam Hussein's regime. And at that time, Hassan Tehrani Muqaddam basically tried to launch and inaugurate Iran's missile program, because at that time, of course, Iran was affected and was hit.
Are we satisfied at this point yet? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. They've got women that they're pushing over there, trying to be the face. They've got all this other crap going on. Huge social media campaign coming out. It's freaking appalling. It's disgusting. I can't believe it's there. Fox McCloud says behind the camera, there's a man with the Billy Club. Yeah, I would believe that as well. I can't with half these people, man. And the propaganda that ends up getting pushed out there. So let's continue on down the rabbit hole. So, you know, you had the lady that's screaming, hey, you don't have to wear your hijab. Not necessarily true.
ما دارید عکس میندازید نگاه کنیم میره تو کشورهای خارجی ما تبلیغمون بد میشه
خانم ما از همه گرفتیم
باشه از همه اشتباه کردید که بی حجابا رو گرفتید حجابتون رو
اتفاقا خیلی بهتره
نه خیلی بهتر نیست ما سنگرمون داره میشکنه نه
نمیشکنه
چرا شما دارید میشکنیدش عزیز من حجابتون حفظ کن خصوصی این روز قشنگ این دوست داره نیست.
So why do we have that taking place? Why do we have a woman showing up and correcting? Well, because they are supposed to be the ones correcting, like the women should be correcting the other ones. And honestly, the women, and I don't know if you noticed the words that were coming out of her mouth and all that other crap, but the women are going to be correcting first. They're all supposed to do it to help save their souls and whatnot. And in addition to that, if the man ends up catching them, they're going to end up getting their freaking butt kicked. All right. This is why we end up having, I think I played the video a while ago of, a lady riding the bus over, I want to say it was in the EU, and that she was getting freaking ridden hard by some other Islamic chick, screaming that she should have her hijab on and everything else. And I talked to you guys about RT. This is the reporter from RT that comes out of Miami. I forget his name because it's not important, but I want you to listen to what they're actually saying and their belief system. This is a new video that I didn't show yesterday, and I think it's very important to understand the mentality of these people.
What does the religious community here think of the negotiations that are going on right now between your government and my government in the United States, where I'm a citizen?
Our people are optimistic, but we did not build the wall of distrust. It was built when Mr. Trump tore up the JCPOA agreement. So the Iranian people and Iranian politicians were not the ones who were not truthful.
We seem to be on the brink of what could be a war. I hope not. Are you worried? Are you scared?
No, we are not afraid at all. We believe that we can stand against any threat with strength. At the same time, we are friends with the American people. Because our religion is a religion of kindness, we are friends with everyone in the world. But if
I don't even know how to respond to that statement. We are a religion of kindness. You guys remember the effigy I just showed you getting burned and all that other crap? This man ought to feel lucky for himself doing the sign of the cross, standing right up over in front of these guys and doing these interviews by him. that he wasn't thrown in freaking jail. Like, it's just nuts. And yes, he is Cuban.
If a country comes to the Middle East and speaks with a language of threat and force, we cannot tolerate that. We have connections with our neighbors and other countries. We are against the high expenses in our lives and the economy. You saw that the people in the bazaar protested and President Pezeshkian accepted it. The people protest but without violence and without the interference of outsiders who supported terrorist groups.
The people protested without violence, he says. The amount of Molotov cocktails I've seen thrown, the amount of vehicles I've seen lit on fire, the amount of government buildings I've seen lit on fire, the amount of people that I have seen shot in both the head, the body, etc., by both the IRGC. It's hard for me to tell whether or not this guy is brainwashed by Iranian state media or whether or not he's just lying. The lying can be permitted underneath their religion, underneath Taqiyya, to advance their, religion on the world stage and so on and so forth, and to keep the Ayatollah in power, whatever. There's a lot of different ways they can spin it and make it happen. But listen to these people, because they either believe it or they're lying. It's one or the other.
You agree, as a university professor, you agree with some of the things the protesters are saying. You don't agree with the way they're doing it, maybe in some cases, but you agree with their statements, with their protests, with their protestations.
Yes, we agree with the protests, but without violence.
Are you concerned that at any moment the United States could start a war with your country? Are you scared?
Well, war is worrying. It's not normal to not be worried, but I believe in my country's forces because they stood against the attack in the 12-day war. We resisted in those 12 days.
So it sounds like you're confident that nothing is going to happen because in the 12-day war, you were able to repel it.
Sure, with hope to God. I have to believe in our national forces, or else I cannot continue.
Yeah, so you're not scared?
Yes. Never. I am ready to even lose my life for my country.
And we're going to pause that again. Now, what mentality do these people have to have? Because, again, I brought this up. To not only have the professor over there, which, by the way, the professor likely is only allowed to teach because of the IRGC, so of course he's going to be pushing like their narrative. The woman that's walking around with him as an interpreter, I'd be very curious to see if RT hired her or if the Islamic Republic ended up hiring her. But the entire thing looks extremely staged. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? But on top of that, my other issue is with our interpreter right here that we have. Because who do you think is going to be providing these different translations and all of that other crap that they're going to be putting out there? And yep, her hair is exposed. Her hijab slid back just a tad bit there, didn't it? But I want you to look at how well put together, and this is why I think she's provided by the regime. You look at the other people that are on the streets, that are walking around, the other ladies, etc., that are out there walking around on the streets. And none of them look that extremely well put together. She's got a very nice trench coat. She's got a modest looking hijab. It's not, like solid black head to toe one. And so it's all looks very, very staged to me, right? Including the people that he is up there, and he's talking to in the face, but he's just got this constant freaking smile and everything about him. And I don't necessarily like it, but yeah, she's got her freaking hijab. She's got everything out there. And it's just, the whole thing, but she's willing to give her life for the country. She actually thinks they're going to go there. Then you have the professor that's spewing his rhetoric. Clearly, and this is, if this man is a professor, think about what he's teaching to the people. So there is just no possible way, again, peaceful religion. There's just no possible way to negotiate with these people. They're flat out liars. Now, who do you think put this video together? Who do you think set all this up? This was set up by the government. And again, this is coming out of, I believe this is the one from Esfahan. No, this isn't the one from Esfahan. I think this is the one in the capital. But this is your state-produced propaganda that ended up coming out of it. Prior to, you got people, I don't even know where the hell they got these dang rocks from that they're like throwing at it while screaming, you know, Allah Akbar and death to America and all that other crap. This is what we are negotiating with. So on one hand, we have the state propaganda that's being pushed out to the rest of the world, that they're a peaceful religion, that they're just trying to live that way. But the shocking part to me, let's assume that lady in the last interview, was not staged and he just stopped and was like, can I talk to this woman? And she agreed. Well, if that's the case, people on the streets willing to give their life for their country, yeah, I don't know. Some of you guys are saying this is AI. I don't know. You guys see this, right? So when the first occasion of the two prophecies came, we arose against you, our servants, possessing the great might, and they ransacked your habitations, and the promise was bound to be fulfilled. Quran, Surah 17. Let's be honest here. And yeah, AI added, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this is your propaganda video with the sand bearing the Star of David, burning the effigies that are not even connected at this point in time. And it's a clear misunderstanding of the Old Testament, to be perfectly honest. But that's the main issue here. There is no compromising with this. Iran has flat out stated that they are not willing to negotiate on their ballistic missiles. They're upset about the caps and the restrictions that are being put on them, and they're not going to change that narrative. They're going to continue on along with that narrative. Now, at the same time, over in the Middle East, we have U.S. CENTCOM that ended up coming out and stating that they successfully transferred over 5,700 male adult ISIS fighters. They said it started on January 21st, it lasted 23 days. This is also important. I had assumed, I think it was last week, when I told you guys that, it looks like we might have completed our transfer of these ISIS fighters over into Iraq. Well, this is the official statement from CENTCOM. So all of our forces that would have been over inside of Syria, and this is why it's important, because I also saw, I think it was 2 days ago, that the Al Tanf base, which is over in the Tri-Corners region in between, in generally speaking, I think it's Syria, Jordan, and Iraq, like that area right there. I'll put it up on the map here in a little bit. That base allegedly ended up getting shut down, and those U.S. forces pulled back over, all right, into Jordan. So our biggest weak point in the Middle East, as far as I was concerned, because of the level of fighting and where it was at, our most vulnerable forces would have been the ones that were over inside of Syria. And the transferring of almost 6,000 ISIS fighters likely would have taken priority. The U.S. wouldn't have wanted to have 6,000 ISIS fighters released back onto the streets for whatever reason. So for that reason alone, we can also look at this and we can say that timeline is getting extremely tight. We can say that those vulnerable forces inside of Syria are now done. They're gone. This is your official announcement for that. That was one of the things that I had talked about and I was rumoring when it was going to happen. Let's see here. Not a cool guy says, what do you want to die for the Middle East? Why do you want to die for the Middle East? Well, not a cool guy. Let's have that conversation. I don't want to die for the Middle East. To be perfectly honest with you, I would be more than willing to die for the defense of America, as imperfect as this country is. Because undoubtedly, in my opinion, we are one of the freest nations, but we're moving towards something else. And when we talk about radical Islam and the threat that it is to the United States of America, that's a very serious issue. particularly with Iran and all of the foreign terror organizations that they've been funding over the years. I'm not talking about Israel. I think the United States and Israel's goals are aligned. Therefore, the U.S. in support of Israeli operations is a good thing. They have decimated Hezbollah. Hezbollah is still a huge issue, and they're still working on that, but they have decimated Hezbollah, right? But when we start talking about these other radical Islamic terror organizations, even having Hezbollah, not just over inside of Venezuela working with Maduro, but also working over allegedly inside of Mexico with the cartel. And I'm trying to remember if Chuck Holton said, no, it was confirmed that they were inside of Syria, or I'm sorry, it was confirmed that Hezbollah was inside of Venezuela, but we're unsure about the Mexico portion, but it is very likely that they're down there right now. And they're working side by side with the cartel. So when we start talking about those issues, and when we talk about the fact that last August or July, a little shy on the month, but August or July, I believe it was the Department of Homeland Security had put out a message that it had previously thwarted lethal attacks by Iran on United States territory. And so when we start talking about these things and we actually bring it up, and we start talking about what the actual problem is and where it's all coming from, that's where it comes from. And unfortunately, in order to actually understand why this radical Islamic terror threat is an issue for the United States in particular, along with the support of Israel, we have to actually understand the theology behind it, not from a Christian perspective, not from a Jewish perspective, but from an Islamic perspective of what it is that the radical Islamic terror organizations actually believe. So I'm actually glad you brought that up, because it's about for the right time, for me to put this up on the screen. Let me grab it here. This is the Palestinian Authority, right? The PA. If you guys haven't looked up, PA Watch or anything like that, I highly suggest you guys do it. Go over and take a look at them. They are a huge issue. Headquartered out of the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, however you want to say it. Here's the problem. On the 10th, they ended up issuing out the draft of their interim constitution. And I happen to have an English copy so that you guys can see it. And I don't want to hear the BS about it's not in Arabic, so therefore it's no, screw you. This is a translated copy that I'm about to go over. And to understand the theology that goes into radical Islam, and to understand the theology that goes behind the Palestinian Authority and what the Ayatollah is so pissed off and why he wants to do it. And we even talked, specifically about this effigy here and why they're burning it and why I brought up the Canaanites and all that other crap that goes into it. What they truly believe, and it is the center of radical Islam. And I saw this when I was in Iraq. I saw this and I heard it when I was over in Afghanistan. It is the belief that has been pushed by these terror organizations that are traveling around the Middle East, that the land of Israel, current present day known as Israel, I'm not even talking about biblical, I'm not talking about any of that, but present day Israel, all of it is occupied territory of the Muslim people, not the Palestinians, but the Muslim people. And the reason, when I pull up the map, let me do this as well. Because it's important for you guys to see this. And hopefully I'm able to actually find it when we take a look at it. That's not going to be a very good representation. I need to find a good one. I want to find overhead, because for some reason people are not familiar with this, and that's okay. Let me open this up for you guys. This is Old Jerusalem that I have up here on the screen. And it's important for you to understand when we start talking about radical Islam. And you guys see the Al-Aqsa Mosque, you see Dome of the Rock and all that other crap, and we can go over, look out, right, where that's at. So there's the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and there's the Dome of the Rock, and then you have the Western Wall that sits right here. Why is that Western Wall important? Why do people go over there, Christians and Jews, to actually go over and visit it? Because you actually have some tequila that's being spit about this entire thing. This dates all the way back to the Jewish temple that was there way back in the day. And whether you like it or not, whether you subscribe to any theology for that matter, is a historical fact that that temple stood right there. And it's not just the wall that provides proof. And by the way, there's also the little wall that's over there as well, not just the big wall. That, ladies and gentlemen, and underground all the way through it, which, by the way, the Western Wall itself, the reason it's so huge is because of the temple that it was supporting. And underneath the temple, all the way down underneath it, you have these large archways, large arcs, and all of this other crap that was supporting these massive stones that were hand-carved to like preciseness that was built over time. Muslims believe that this location is where Muhammad, after being teleported in some way that I can't possibly understand, this is where he ended up ascending up to heaven. Thus the mosque, thus the Dome of the Rock, thus all of that garbage. That is why they believe it's their land. And this is reaffirmed by the PA. If I go down here to paragraph 3, Article 3, Jerusalem. Let me zoom in on this for you. This is, again, going back to the PA. They are radical. Make no mistake about it. Jerusalem is the capital of the state of Palestine and its political, spiritual, cultural, and educational center, as well as its national symbol. The state is committed to preserving its religious character and protecting its Islamic and Christian sanctities, as well as its legal, political, and historical status. Any measure to change its character or historical identity are considered null and void according to international law. Palestine, rooted in the word Philistines, from the area of Philistia. And when we start talking about this and when we go back into it, and I'm going to open the map back up because it's very important for you guys to understand how this is all like changed, right? And for them to take it over. And if you guys have seen radical Islam and what they do, here you have Church of the Holy Scepter. That's over there. Sepulchre. This location is what contains Jesus's tomb. Been there personally, walked through it, checked it out, kneeled before and prayed at it. And you can take that however you want. I'm not at all shy about stating my religious views as a Christian. However, to pretend as if the Jewish people did not have an origin here long before the birth of Islam is absolutely ludicrous. Is beyond ludicrous. It's beyond ludicrous for them to even claim a historical relevance. The PA, the Palestinian Authority, the same people that I just read that to. And by the way, there's a reason they ended up putting the Al-Aqsa Mosque there and everything else. But the PA now has the belief that they are pushing that the Jews actually originated out of Asia and that they invaded that land, that they have no right to it. And they don't pay attention to the historical context. But the whole point of all of this being, when it goes down to theology, is that the radical Islamic belief, which is not rooted in a historical context, is that all of this land belongs to them because of this. That's why. That's why they state it is their divine right. That's why they state all of that. The Mount of Olives, for those of you guys that don't know, that read the Bible, is actually right across. There's a valley that cuts right up through here. And it's right up over here. When you start talking about, what Jesus was doing during that time, you guys see it right here. It's listed, Mount of Olives. When we start talking about what Jesus was doing and when he was going in and out of Jerusalem days before, his death and crucifixion, this is where he was traveling from. And all of this is historically documented. Now, here's something fun to bring up. Who do you think that this area over here belongs to? Who do we think this area belongs to? Up over here, as we start looking at it. Where do you think you are and are not allowed to go? That whole area sits inside the West Bank. When we zoom in and we look at Jerusalem, you guys can actually see the division and everything where it goes. So the Mount of Olives, sitting over inside the West Bank, all of that. and him traveling back over here, going back and forth, etc. For people to sit, in that very famous saying by Charlie Kirk, like, when I went to Israel, I was able to walk on the same steps that Jesus walked, etc. That's partially true. I'm not aware of Charlie Kirk going over the Mount of Olives because it's in the West Bank. Ask yourself how many Christians are allowed to come into this area right over here. So the answer is 0, nor Jew. You got to be Muslim. And they have guards, and they have everybody else over there. Good luck getting in there. And no, you ain't taking a Bible in there with you either, if you could even try it. It is appalling to me that people want to sit and try to, erase history. And that is exactly what they're trying to do when they state that. So when they put out this, and they state that that's there, that Jerusalem is their capital, it's a lie. It's historically not founded. Archaeological evidence suggests different. Historical evidence suggests different. Historical documentation suggests differently. They don't even believe, despite how well it is documented, that Jesus was in fact crucified. Do you guys know that? This is the issue with radical Islam. And their goal is to take over the United States. Their goal is to have their flag flying everywhere and to have it under rule. And they want to pretend like that's not the case, but it most certainly is. And you might sit back and you might say the United States hasn't had a major terrorist attack since 9/11. That's fine. You can state that all you want. You're freaking welcome. You're welcome for the thousands of U.S. service members that went into the Middle East and gave their lives and eradicated the world of a lot of these radical Islamic terrorists. And to pretend like it is not a threat to the United States because of that radical ideology, you're delusional. And I highly suggest you do some more research. I will fully admit that when I went to the Middle East, I had very little knowledge of any of this. Very little. I was confused why Iraqis would show me videos of Jews being killed during the Holocaust while telling me it was a very good thing. I was very confused by that. And those were our allies. Those were the people that we were working with at the time. Those were the moderates. And the answer is because of this. And the Palestinian movement that they're all behind and that they're all lying about, the Palestinian movement is centric to the radical Islamic movement because of this false theology, historically unfounded theology. That is why. Because whether you, as an American or as a European or anybody else for that matter, understands what it is that they believe and what they're willing to give for that, which is why that lady on the street said she's willing to give her life for her country in that interview by the RT reporter. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean that we don't. You're welcome. Always, Asteritus says, don't forget to wear pants to court. You got this, brother. Thank you for everything that you do, including the pants check. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's nuts to me. It's nuts to me. That's not Jewish. I gave you the Muslim belief, the radical Muslim belief. That's what I gave you. I gave you the radical Islamic narrative, whether you like it or not. And that's not Jewish. That's not Christian. Those are just facts. And if you have no better response than to what they put in black and white in writing and have been giving their lives for, then you have zero business even discussing this with me or even writing in my comment section because you have no clue what the heck it is you're talking about. And it's pretty dang sad. It's pretty sad that we've gotten to a point in this country where because you've seen a TikTok video or because you read some lie online in a freaking Twitter post that you think you know what's actually going on in this world when the truth is you have zero clue. You have zero clue how insane these people are. You have zero clue how large of a threat they are and the lengths and the extent that they'll go through. I talked to a MACV song guy one of the most memorable conversations that I ever had. And he said, how do you stop someone whose sole mission in life is to kill you or to get you to submit to their will, and they are willing to die in order to do that? You don't get to negotiate with that. You don't get to do anything. Your only answer is to kill that person. It's self-defense. And you don't have to wait to get shot at. You don't have to wait for them to attack your homeland and massacre your own people as they've been massacring theirs for thousands of years. No, you are proactive about that. That's what men do. Men protect their own. So to sit back and to criticize because you don't understand something, I highly suggest you do some more research on the subject. It's absolutely appalling that we have people that are that ignorant inside of this country. Fox McCloud says Islam is a religion that at its core, it seeks to colonize the world. It is written in their book. Go do some research, man. I don't know what else to tell you. It's freaking appalling. Absolutely appalling that people are that retarded. I'll tell you another sign that we're getting very close. Because of the Palestinian movement that I just explained, hopefully you get this more in context now. When I bring up Gaza and I bring up that Israel is about to ride on Gaza yet again, and that we have Indonesian peacekeeper troops that have been, started deployment and all that crap over there. We're starting to move forward with that plan as it's going in to rid the world of another radical Islamic terror organization that wants you dead. They've been violating the ceasefire agreement over there for the longest freaking time. And Israel is about to ride hard on them.
I am here at an IDF outpost in the Gaza Strip by the Yellow Line in central Gaza, if I'm not mistaken, where we're seeing the Yellow Line, which you probably can't see from here, but the Hamas terrorist organization and other terrorist organizations are violating it on a daily basis, many, many times a day. They're passing the line even though they're not supposed to. They're planting explosives on the line and past the line even though they're not supposed to. And they're firing at IDF soldiers even though they are not supposed to. Just a few days ago at this very outpost, an IDF soldier was severely injured by sniper fire. Hopefully he'll be okay. But it's a bad situation, and it's made even worse by the fact that, according to the latest reports, Hamas and presumably its Qatari overlords are doing everything in their power to ensure that Hamas retains its ability to hold small arms. And by small arms, we mean AK-47s and the like. I don't really understand how Hamas is even still in existence, allowed to exist, much less have AK-47s, but this is the situation that we're in. I don't know what else to say about that. I think it's absolutely insane.
So, as he stated, they're still getting wounded by sniper fire. They're holding the line that's out there. They're continuing to violate the ceasefire agreement, and they're not willing to disarm. Now, like I told you guys in the past, this is that fight for radical Islamic terror. If Hamas, or if the PA, or if any of the other radical Islamic terror organizations in the West Bank succeed, that is a huge move for the Islamic terror movement. And Iran, the IRGC that's been funding it, needs to go. And if you don't even like the Islamic terror narrative, I can tell you that the attack between China and Russia against the US dollar should scare the crap out of you of what's been going on, which is why I talk about things like the Department of War investing almost $3 billion into a smelter with JP Morgan over here in the United States of America, having a 40% stake in it. And it's not going to come online for a couple of years because they are directly going after critical minerals and critical assets for the United States. That is why we went down into Venezuela, not just because of the Islamic terrorists that were pouring into there at the welcoming of Maduro, because the IRGC is moving the oil to China in order to pay Maduro's loan back from China, because the IRGC, because Maduro, because all of them have been laundering money for both Russia and China. And because they had plans to attack the United States of America, that's why we ripped Maduro out. And the key factor between all of them is the IRGC. IRGC is the middleman the go-to in between. And you might not like it when I bring this up, but I will. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Hopefully I'm able to pull this up because I've done so freaking much on this. It's insane. The graphic that I put together, weeks ago was absolutely amazing. But yeah, it's nuts to me. Let me see if I can find it real quick, because maybe this will help you out a little bit more. Oh, this is garbage. I know it's there. I hate it this sometimes when it won't actually pull it up. Well, we'll get there eventually. Actually, I think I might have actually saved it on my desktop so I can open it up for you guys. Long story short, China, Iran, Venezuela, and Russia, all in cahoots together, all working together to destroy the United States of America by either attacking our dollar or killing our people. Deborah says, congrats on the Chuck Holton interview. I think that's the second one that I've done, Deborah. I hope you guys learned something today on the show. I hope you guys have a greater understanding for what's actually going on as a whole. It's not just about Iran. It's not just about what's taking place over in the Levant area. It's not just about what's taking place in South America. It quite literally is about, number one, the US dollar, but also number two, stopping the spread of radical Islamic terror. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. As always, make sure your notification bell is turned on. Make